Welcome back to the Nonprofit Spotlight. I'm your host, Mike Gutzler, and today I'm really excited to welcome Kamilah McAfee, who is the president and CEO of Wesley Housing. Welcome, Kamilah. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Pastor Mike. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm going to start by just saying congratulations to you and your whole team for this past year celebrating your 50th anniversary.
Yes, yes. Wish I could say that I was here during that entire time, but I was not, thankfully.
Yeah. Well, your organization might be new to some folks. Can you just maybe start us off with giving us a little background and history of how Wesley Housing came into existence, or maybe some of the things going on in our neighborhood 50 years ago, and it's just kind of like the impetus to get going from there.
Sure, absolutely. Thank you again. So I'm Kamilah McAfee. Again, I was not here the entire 50 years of the Wesley Housing history, but I have been with the organization for some 16 years now. Wesley Housing was founded out of the United Methodist social justice initiatives and urban consultation that was done in the mid 70s, 1974. In fact, our founder, Virginia Peters, a former school teacher who had very limited background and experience in housing, other than probably the fact that she resided in a home, came about taking on this issue as one of many social justice issues that the church was evaluating at the time, what role the church could play in making an impact in the communities and neighborhoods that they served. And so out of that initiatives and that study, which encompassed Virginia Peters going out and meeting her neighbors and realizing some of the housing conditions that folks were living in, formed Wesley Housing as a 501c3 nonprofit. And since that time, we've developed and owned and operated over 2,300 units across the Northern Virginia landscape as well as the District of Columbia. We've served over, well, really, when you count all the individuals that we've served and touched over those 50 years, it's probably upwards of 25,000. But on average, we have over 3,800 residents living in our communities today.
That's extraordinary, and that's mostly in Northern Virginia and Washington, D.C., right?
That's correct.
Excellent. And so how does that kind of divide it? Like, what are the types of neighborhoods that you're in and the communities that you serve?
Sure. So I would say that our footprint has expanded through those years. So originally, a lot of the communities were in Fairfax County, Arlington, Alexandria, and that's where the predominance of our communities are today. But we've also expanded out into Manassas, out to Frederick County, Virginia, and again, as I mentioned, in the District of Columbia back in, I think in 2016 is when we acquired our first community there in partnership with the tenants.
Nice. And are you on a trajectory for growth, or do you feel like you're at a good place now? Like,
We are. At our 50th anniversary announcement, we also announced the fact that we are merging with a peer organization that has predominantly served the jurisdictions in Virginia that we don't have a current footprint in, outside of Northern Virginia. And so that is the Virginia United Methodist Housing Development Corporation, which is currently based in Roanoke,
mhm.
again, with communities across the I-81 corridor and the south side of Virginia and even over on the Eastern Shore. So we are expanding our footprint throughout the Commonwealth of Virginia, and we're very excited about it. It, of course, brings new challenges and opportunities to serve varying communities with varying housing needs, but we're not shy for tackling some of those challenges.
Oh my gosh, well, first of all, congratulations. That is a huge, big next step for you all.
Absolutely.
That's amazing. So, can you tell us a little bit about how affordable housing works? So, some of our listeners may not know that there's organizations out there like yours that provide housing on a subsidized basis or even in creative ways to help people have better entry into housing, especially if they're experiencing homelessness. So, could you say a little bit about how that works or maybe the process?
Sure. And let me define it a bit, because that is always the $1 million question, so to speak, is, what does affordable mean? Because affordable can be different things to different people, right? Everyone needs a level of affordability, and it really does scan across a full continuum.
Hmm.
We do serve folks on average below 60% of the area median income. And in Northern Virginia and the DC metro region, median income is quite high, as you can imagine. It's over $155,000 a year for a family of four, which, when you break that down for context, at 60% of AMI for a single individual, tends to be a little bit above $60,000 a year.
Wow.
HUD and other federal partners set those parameters around those income limits, and different programs that we access to be able to develop and operate that housing, set different levels of affordability and targets for us. We do serve people, again, across that housing continuum on that average up to 60%, but we do serve folks below what we would say 0 to 30 or 40%, which would be a lot of folks maybe coming out of homelessness and or on Social Security or disability assistance. And really at that lowest end of the spectrum are most vulnerable residents who may also have other special needs. And then in your 50 to 60% of the area median income oftentimes is are actively working residents, and that's probably the predominance of our portfolio. That still are not able to afford market rates, rents in the communities in which they live. And the programs that we use to be able to construct and operate those communities, the largest production and preservation tool in the United States since the mid 80s is what's called the Low Income Housing Tax Credit, the LIHTC program. You might hear the Housers reference. And that is a tax credit that the federal government provides through an allocated process through the states, that private companies such as banks and insurance companies and other financial institutions that need a tax benefit may invest in order to produce and preserve affordable housing. That's the predominant tool. On top of that, we also layer in a lot of other financing, especially as we're able to target those folks and serve those folks at the lowest end of our income scale. We get a lot of subsidy from the local governments. You might hear about the Arlington Housing Investment Fund, or the Fairfax County Blueprint money, or City of Alexandria money. They invest in those projects so that they can fill the gap between what we're able to raise on the private markets with that tax credit equity, with a first mortgage, just like any other producer and owner of housing, as well as, again, those gap sources. And then on the operating side, oftentimes, again, still yet to be able to operate those communities long term, there may also be some operating subsidy that might go directly to the resident or to the property to subsidize and make sure that those residents aren't rent burdened, and they still only pay what the in the U.S. we consider affordable 30%, less than 30% of your income for housing and housing related expenses.
Yeah.
I
So
got a little technical there, but
no, it's great. No, this is important stuff. Yeah. And so you all are providing an opportunity for people who don't have the means to access housing in our neighborhood, and giving them an alternative option.
that's
So
right. In traditional ways, yeah.
yeah, absolutely. So how does one go about accessing housing that you all provide? Can you say a little bit about like what that process is? If someone was maybe listening to this and was like, "Oh, this could work for me," or "I'm
Yeah.
having a transition in my life and I'm going to need an alternative housing, but I want to stay here." How does that? How does someone make that transition or get introduced and have access to your housing?
Sure. Well, I mean, I would always reference folks to visit our website at www.wesleyhousing.org, where we have a list of all the communities that we own and operate, and those different um, uh, targets and requirements related. Some of the housing we operate is designated for persons that are older adults. Some are designated for persons with disabilities and other unique needs. So there's that avenue. And then every locality and the state, in fact, also have affordable housing resources. I don't want to misquote the state website, but there is an affordable housing resource website that is dedicated and can identify those resources that are out there in the community that are committed affordable units. And the local localities list their committed affordable units as well on their
Okay.
materials.
Yeah. So you mentioned just in passing kind of like the nuances and the differences with some of the housings that you have to offer. Could you say a little bit more specifics about each of them, or not even have to be all of them, but maybe just kind of highlight what are the bright spots of some of the different communities that you're a part of?
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, we have a good amount of our communities that are dedicated housing for individuals who are older adults, and sometimes that can be at 55 plus. I know that's surprising to some because this is still again for active older adults and mature, let's say. And then we have some that are dedicated at 62 plus. And oftentimes, really, what happens in demographics for us, even though those are the minimum ages, a lot of the folks that we are serving tend to be older on the income scale. And I think our average age across many of our communities tends to be about 75.
Mm.
And what's really unique and important about how we're best able to serve those individuals is that we not only provide the housing, and of course, that housing being oftentimes adaptable to maybe their physical needs, such as having accessible units and or adaptable units, universally designed units that have the ability for people to age successfully in place. But we also have a number of dedicated resident services staff to help support those communities. And those folks really do provide opportunities for additional socialization activities that kind of help our older adults not become socially isolated. They provide housing stability supports, whereas making sure people have access to and helping them apply for Medicare or Medicaid or disability benefits or VA benefits or other things that folks sometimes can't navigate or don't know how to navigate those systems to access benefits for which they're entitled, and really do play that role of village support for our communities. So dedicated housing for older adults, dedicated housing for individuals with disabilities which may have similar needs, as well as other specialized housing where uh, it's deemed fit.
Yeah, that's actually nice transition into my next question for you. And I was wondering, in addition to providing housing, what other services do you provide, or what other types of agencies that you are connected with, whether that's even other nonprofits or for-profit entities, to help your residents have additional services provided to them?
Yeah, so we do provide those services across four different pillars: housing stability, health and wellness, community engagement, and education. And so, I spoke a little bit about housing stability. I'll just add to that that may also include um, uh, food assistance. And so we do partner with a lot of the area local food banks, such as AFAC in Arlington and Alexandria, and other food bank sources. We also provide additional material assistance for our older adults. And in the wintertime, it might be gifts of warmth or different assistance during the holidays, as well as for our families, backpack assistance during back to school time and other things such as that nature. And then we do provide a lot of out of school time support for our students to help make sure there's not a lot of summer summer learning loss during the summer season, as well as after school care for a lot of our residents who may be working in the evenings. It's a place for their kids to be able to touch down with trusted partners who are working with their kids with homework help and other things. We leverage a lot of volunteer and and excuse me, an intern, social work intern assistants to be able to help us best deploy those programs. And so that might be an opportunity for some of your listeners as well.
Yeah, I was gonna say the way that you describe it makes it sound like you almost have a community within community in your spaces, and that you're not only providing housing, but you're providing opportunities for people to be connected,
That's
in
great.
addition to being healthier, more socialized, more educated, and a contributor to not only your community but the larger community as well. And that's awesome.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And
And we,
so, oh,
yeah,
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
we're just going to add on to that segue. Just we did launch. We're excited to happen to launch a program we're calling the Resident Ambassador Program this past year, where we have a select number of individual residents who are true advocates for their community, and we're trying to get them more actively involved in community engagement and civic activity, and give them tools to be able to deploy that skill set not only for their on-site community, but the broader community at large.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
So, if we had some listeners here that are inspired by the work that you and your team are doing and would like to be involved, are there some volunteer options that they could share some of their time with to help you and your staff and your communities?
So again, I would ask if they would go to our website and send an email or a connect through that way of indicating their interest. We do maintain a list of volunteers, and when those opportunities arise, we reach out to them for individual specialized opportunities. In particular, we kind of really like to be able to work with folks who might have a particular set of skills, right? That we've worked with folks that might teach English as a second language or other particular professional areas of expertise that they might lend their talents to our communities.
That's great. Thank you. And then, in addition to that, if there's people that want to support the work that you're doing, is there ways for individuals to make donations as well?
Absolutely. We always appreciate that as well. I'm sure every 501(c)(3) has a donate now page, right? So we
Yeah.
do as well on our website. So we appreciate all donations, big and small. It's integral to the work that we do, especially on the service side.
Yeah.
Right. I mentioned a number of tools to be able that we utilize and deploy to be able to build and preserve the communities, the housing, but the service side is really philanthropic driven. And so that's integral to the work that we're able to do.
Great. Are there any particular projects right now that you want to highlight or that you're trying to raise some funds to make a reality?
Sure. Yeah. So just in terms of projects that we have in our pipeline to produce, I want to just mention that we recently received a award announcement of a HUD 202 support for our Kindred Crossing community that's done in partnership with the First Christian Church of Falls Church. We found great success, great partnerships with our faith communities for stewardship of land and shared values and mission. And so the First Christian Church of Falls Church set aside a few acres of their property that they've been blessed with to be able to dedicate and construct 95 units of new housing for older adults. And we'll be doing that also, setting aside some space, dedicated space for the Colmore Clinic, who has been serving the Bailey Crossroads community for decades. And so there's really that great co-location of health services for the broader community, as well as the dedicated housing for our older adults. And so we'll be really working hard and hopefully continue to work with our federal government partners who are integral to the work that we do, to be able to hopefully close on that by the end of the year and start construction there. The other community that's in our pipeline that I wanted to highlight is our Melwood our Melwood Apartments community that we're doing in partnership with the Melwood organization that does workforce development for individuals with disabilities. They too decided to be uh, uh, stewards of their land to be able to produce affordable housing not only for the existing communities that they serve, and we have an agreement where we will prioritize up to 30% of our units for individuals with disabilities, but also the broader community, because we're going to be able to integrate that into a apartment complex that'll house about 105 individuals. And that recently got zoning approval this past Saturday in Arlington County, which was a great Herculean feat. And we're excited to move on to the next phase of securing financing for that one. But then just to go back to, active fundraising for all of our existing 2,300 units that we support in the district, as well as Northern Virginia, across the board, I have 14 dedicated professionals that support those communities. So the need is always great.
Yeah. Wow, those sound like really fantastic projects.
Yeah,
I would encourage our listeners to go back and listen to the conversation we had with the Colmar Clinic
oh,
from season one, and they do such great work. And to have them have even more dedicated space in a development right down the road from here is very exciting. That's great.
absolutely. They deserve it.
Yeah, they are doing some fantastic stuff for sure. They're great, and it's fun to really listen to you talk about the partnerships that you're having and to making some of these projects reality. I know it's got to be a very long, drawn out process, but then when you get the okay, then like the dream becomes a reality.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I'll offer up another opportunity for your listeners. I just mentioned that we got zoning approval for our Melwood project. And as you might imagine, whenever we go through an entitlements process for any one of these communities, sometimes the loudest voices are the naysayers. Sometimes the folks that show up to every meeting are the naysayers. So it's always nice when we also get support from people who are advocates for the work that we do, and from independent third party voices that, either from their own lived experience or the experiences of others that they know, because we all do know someone who can qualify and does qualify and live in the communities that we build. And they're key partners in our workforce. They're key partners in taking care of our kids
Yeah.
and our older adults in the medical communities. Excuse me. And so um, it's always nice to also get those positive voices that are in support of the activities that we're doing to come out to those hearings, and so that the elected officials can hear from the community, those communities as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I'm assuming you have like a newsletter or something to that effect that people can sign up for on the website.
Absolutely.
Okay, great. Excellent. So, as you're thinking next 50 years into the future and the realistic challenges that are in our community, in our area, and now as you see the map, the entire state of Virginia, can you say a little bit about what you think some of the challenges are that you see coming down the road, or some of the difficulties, but also maybe the opportunities that you see from your perspective?
Yeah. Well, let me start on the bright side, I suppose. I think the bright side, opportunistic side of things is that housing is in everybody's everyday vernacular today, right? I would say the 16 years ago when I started at Wesley, it was not affordable housing, that is. People knew it existed. People had a lot of misconceptions about what does it mean? What are we building? Is it traditional public housing? Is it, deteriorated, dilapidated, and undesirable locations? Or is it state of the art, quality, healthful, sustainable design housing to support our residents long term? And that it is the latter now.
Hmm.
And so, and the need for it as it is affecting more individuals who, their children aren't able to live where they were born and raised. because they can't afford it as adults, or if their parents and grandparents aren't able to continue to live in the communities in which they've lived their entire lives. It really has become a part of everybody's everyday experience of the need for more affordable housing. And so it's really a part of the national conversation, as a high need. And we've had a lot of resource allocation from our local, state, and federal governments over the past decade or so, and particularly a lot of investment during the pandemic, because the resources were necessary and critical to keeping people safe and housed during that time frame. But looking forward, and as we're all experiencing some of the actions that are happening over the past month or so, I am a little bit nervous, just about the political and the economic environment. I said over last month from a political standpoint, but the economy for the past year and a half, 2 years, we suffer from inflationary pressures on our operating expenses, on our costs for insurance, our costs for taxes, real estate taxes, and the like. We Our residents aren't experiencing as much increase in their income, and we really take a mind to not increase rents for our residents at a large pace at which they can't sustain. And so while our expenses are going up by 6, 7, 8, 9% annually, our income is only going up by 2, 3%. And, that's not long-term sustainable.
Yep.
And so those are the challenges that, keep me up at night. And then any particular reduction in federal, state, or local resources for the continued production and preservation of housing.
Yeah. That's really beautifully said and well articulated. Thank you. That's the real challenges that we are seeing, and thank you for that. Anything else that you can think of from your perspective that you'd like folks to know about Wesley Housing, or just some thoughts in general about what you're up to?
No, I would just, again, what's on mind is continuing to pray for our federal partners, those folks that are affected, by a reduction in force that's happening across this region and beyond, and knowing that they are critical to the work that we do, and to other supports that our residents have access to, as well as everyone's individual daily lives. So that's active on mind right now, and active advocacy around making sure we don't see a reduction in resources or staffing at Housing and Urban Development, which is our key partner,
Mhm.
and or making sure that the state and local governments are able to step up in other ways, to continue to support the great work that our peers and advocates are all involved in day to day. So
Yeah.
thank you for the time and the platform to share.
Oh my gosh, no, thank you so much. And to all your team, like, you really are the caretakers of thousands of people in our neighborhood, and providing them a safe, warm, comfortable home to come to at a rate that's probably otherwise not possible in our
Right.
neighborhood. And so the work that you do is crucial, and thank you for that. And it really is important. So we're grateful to have you share a little bit of your valuable time with us.
I appreciate it, Pastor Mike. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you.